Hello, welcome to the 7th in the series of Global Thinkers Forum podcasts on the coronavirus. I'm Professor Andrew McLeod. In previous episodes, I've spoken about how it is you need to adjust to the coronavirus and the lockdowns that we're all going through. In this episode, I want to talk about the hardest part. And the hardest part isn't the lockdown. The hardest part is the release from the lockdown. Because different jurisdictions and different countries will do it at different speeds. And people will want it done at different speeds. One of the early signs of the difficulty that we're going to have on the release from lockdown is the increased squabbling that we see amongst politicians on all sides of the political divide in different countries. At the initial stage of the coronavirus, in many countries, but not all, the political class tended to speak as one, recognising an international emergency and national emergencies as a time in which political differences need to be put aside. But as we see countries starting to release, we see opposition parties, left or right, whatever political party, are now starting to make some trouble, and governments are finding that they don't have the free run that they had at the initial stage. What this will do is create a series of conflicts in public discourse. And we see disagreements amongst friends, not just politicians now. Worst of all, in the countries in which the lockdowns were effective, and in this I'm thinking the most effective, New Zealand, Australia, and countries such as those, you're now seeing some people who are opposed to the lockdowns saying, we told you it wasn't going to be that bad, the experts were wrong, people didn't die, forgetting the critical element that people did not die because the lockdowns were imposed. Like all other aspects of the coronavirus and the lockdowns, we all have individual responsibility and collective responsibility as a part of a community to make sure that we ultimately win this battle against the virus. This means making sure that we do resist the temptation to squabble, resist the temptation to believe conspiracy theories. In one of the earlier episodes, I talked about the need for us to all respond to fake news, to all call out rubbish that we see on our social media feeds. I renew that call in this podcast because it is going to be more important than ever that we listen to the science and remember that science doesn't give us exact answers. This is an unprecedented virus. The lockdown was unprecedented, and we're going to get tired of the word. The release is unprecedented as well. Different employers are going to be bringing employees back on at different paces. Different cafes are going to be able to open based on their square meterage, the size, the ability to carry a loss. Perhaps it is chains that will open before smaller local cafes, or perhaps smaller local cafes will open first. We just don't know what's going to happen. And like in an earlier podcast when I said we need to plan for uncertainty, we need to continue to plan for uncertainty as we come out of this crisis. We've all done enormously good work. We have, in very many countries, beaten the virus in this first battle. We've got to make sure we beat the virus in the war. And a critical role for all of us is to combat fake news, resist the conspiracy theories, listen to the science, but maintain flexibility, because no one's got this perfect. No one's going to get this exactly right, and we've got to prepare for disappointments. But just remember this, if we unlock too soon and too fast, or somehow we think the rules don't apply to us, we might have to do the whole lockdown all over again if a second wave of deaths hits and gets out of control. In cases like this, it's always better to err on the side of caution, not err on the side of freedom. It's going to be difficult for many people to hear, particularly those of a libertarian bent. But think about it this way. If we lock down too long and get it wrong, we've spent 1 or 2 weeks too long locked down. But if we release too early and get it wrong, we might have to lock down again for months at a time. So I urge caution, and I just ask you to remember, coming out of the lockdown is harder than going in. Whilst we've been in shock in the last few weeks, we now are faced with our biggest challenge: how to slowly release, how to rebuild, and how to recover. Stay strong.